Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth, folks that are joining us online, everyone, the city staff, everyone that is here in our public work session for today. I want to welcome our city manager, Stephen Carter, our deputy city attorney, Mr. Derek Challenger, and our city clerk, Ms. Deborah White. Thank you all for being here, and want to acknowledge my members and colleagues on council and Madam Clerk. With that being said, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Bryant?
Present.
Dr. Dotson?
Here.
Mr. Hugel?
Present.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Tillage?
Here.
Mayor Glover?
Here.
Turn the phone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. We have actually just one presentation tonight, but we have a couple topics that we're going to talk about. The first thing we'll talk about this evening will be our proposed sale of land to the city of Suffolk for a fire station expansion. Second thing would be our economic development group has asked for a couple of council members to participate in a committee that they're going to stand up to help with Crawford Bay and getting that area moving along. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when that comes up. But because of some maneuvering that has happened today, we want to kind of represent some of the things that we went over last night about the budget, so that we know that when we get to the full meeting, everybody realizes what they're voting on. It won't be some surprise at that point, because there was a little maneuvering today, so we want to make sure we go back through that again. Okay. So we'll start off with this presentation. It's actually the 800 block of Lake Kilby Road in Suffolk. The city of Portsmouth. Well, you did it for those guys. You want to do it for me? I'm just saying. You treat them better than you treat me. Not a problem. No, I'm sorry. But City of Suffolk has reached out and inquired about a portion of land that's right next to a fire station that they already own. Understand that this has been a previous request for this body that had been previously denied. What I'm going to do this evening is present some information to you, just not as, this is not a persuasive presentation, but one that just presents the information, and then we'll decide how we're going to move forward after that. Next slide, please. The purpose of this presentation is just to provide the information about the sale of land owned by the city in Suffolk and give you some objective analysis of what it is. We'll go through some of the pros and cons of it, and we'll also talk about some of the future implications of doing or not doing either one. The next slide, please. This is just some information about the subject property. It is 2.95 acres. It's located adjacent to the Suffolk Fire Station number 4. Currently owned by the city, and it's zoned rural estate. The legal status is legal non-conforming. Currently it's just vacant land. It's a wooded area there. The assessed value has come in at $84,900. There was an appraisal done, and the appraised value came back at $90,000. Just for emphasis, the legal status of legal non-conforming means that this is a property that is zoned currently rural estate. I think the minimum for that is 3 acres. So this comes in just under 3 acres. However, it's kind of grandfathered in because it was 2.9 acres before the requirement to become 3 acres was levied on this piece of property. So it's legal. You can still do whatever you need to do. You can sell it. You can build a house on it. You can do all the things that you can do. However, to be completely legal, it needed to be at least 3 acres. So that was the reason that it has that qualification on it. Next slide, please. City of Suffolk intend to use this as a construction site for a new and larger fire station. The fire station, there's a fire station on property that Suffolk owns right now, sitting right next to this property. What they want to do is make sure that as they're building the new station, they can continue to provide services in this area while the new station is being built. They've made an offer. I've sent that offer to you guys by email a few weeks ago, and they've committed to pay the formal appraisal fee. That was the appraisal that we got. So they've already done this portion here where they provide an appraisal that at their own cost. Next slide, please. This is just, that didn't turn out right. Didn't look like mine. But this is just some information, and the information is in your packets for this area that's kind of covered up there. It's appraised at the market value of $90,000. It is designated as the highest and best use is a single-family residential. The exposure time is estimated at 3 months, and it used some comparables in the area ranging from 70,000 to 115,000. And lot sizes that they used were 1.3 to 4 acres. And the exposure time is, let's say that if we decided just to go out to market on this property instead of selling it to Suffolk, that exposure time is what they estimate it would take to sell that property just on the open market for $90,000 if that's what you decided to ask. Next slide, please. Some of the pros. Going to talk about pros and cons. Naturally, we'll start with the pros. I've talked to several of the departments about this particular property. As it stands today, there's no official designation for any use for that property. Don't have any future plans for it. So just having the property, or just being able to get rid of the property may be of value for us. If we decide to sell at that appraised value, it will generate some income for the city. It supports the public safety in that area naturally because they're expanding their fire department there. And through our mutual aid agreements, their fire departments also support things that happen within our city if the need arises. It also reduces any liability and maintenance on those properties so that we're no longer liable for anything that happens with or for that property. It also seems goodwill and strengthens the intergovernmental relationships if we decide to go this route. There are options that we can put in place if we decide to do this that would give us even first rights back if we decide that, hey, this is something that we want to pursue. But if they want to do something later with it in the future, we can have some clawbacks built in that we can get the first right back to that property if we decide that it's a route that we want to take. But we can also use this as an opportunity to again have some goodwill, but also use it as a leverage for any future negotiations that we may want to do. If there's something that comes up where there's a benefit that Suffolk has that we may need, this could be a leveraging tool that we could use as some goodwill that, we did something for you now. Hey, it's an opportunity for you to do something back for us. Also, there's no known legal or environmental issues. We've also checked through those processes, so we're in good shape there. Next slide, please. Well, one of the cons is, same thing that make you happy, make you sad, that we can get rid of this property, we're no longer responsible for it, but then you get rid of the property and we're no longer responsible for it. So that can be viewed as a positive or a negative. One thing that I can tell you, with the state of real estate, it can be in flux. So we may sell it today for one price, 10 years from now it may be worth a different price. So that's always a thing that you take take a risk with when you're selling property. We can, there's no guarantee of mutual benefit or reciprocity from Suffolk, which means, this can be used as an olive branch to try to create a leverage for us to use. However, there's no guarantee that that's going to actually be the thing that happens. And finally, what will our taxpayers think about us getting rid of land that we own in another city that way? Is there a clear benefit for us? There's not really a benefit to the city. So our taxpayers may have something to say about how we get rid of that property. Next slide, please. The whole impetus for all this is we only have 3 options. One is we can proceed if this group feels like that is something that they'd like to pursue. And if that is, we'll begin discussions with Suffolk based on the appraised value. However, we'll do some research ourselves and determine if that appraised value is actually the thing that we think should be the asking value for that property. We'll develop some terms for sale and any deed restrictions where I've talked about, we can claw back if they decide not to use it for public use or something like that. We'll work through our city attorney's office if that is an area that we'd like to pursue to see if there is to determine how we can make sure that we have the first right of refusal for any future use. And if that is option A is something that we'd like to pursue, we'll go through all the detail of that and then bring back something for you to actually decide whether or not you want to vote on. Option B is natural, we can just decline. And I think that's the stance that this council has used before, and that's still an option to you. You can absolutely just decline, say thank you, but no thank you, and we'll move forward. And then option C is if there's something that you think you need to know more about, you can just kind of defer, kick it down the road. We'll gather whatever information is that you think you're missing, bring that back to you, and let you make a decision at that point. So those are the options that we have on the table. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is just a kind of an aerial to kind of show you where all this property is that we're talking about. We showed you a smaller version. The actual property is here. Yeah. One thing that we'd like to point out to you is that the water treatment plant is down there. And what you see is that network of lakes that we use to actually provide water to our system. That was just kind of an overall picture to kind of give you an idea of what that full area looked like. We had some of the smaller pictures there, kind of give you a spotlight look at the property. But that kind of gives you a more detailed look about what's happening around that property. Next slide. Questions? And I'll try to answer anything that you may have.
Councilman Tillett, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So the property that we're talking about,
Yes, sir.
there is no connection to the water treatment facility.
No.
So it's just a piece of property in the middle of
It's kind of out there. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor. Why did we acquire this property initially in 1954?
I tried to find an answer. I could not find why. I found when, but there's no real record of why. Maybe it was just part of the purchase of that land that went around with that lake, and there's a network of lakes that you saw through there. But I could not find a reason why. I did look for that.
Okay.
Councilman. Okay.
If somebody knows, that would help me. Yes.
Oh, Vice Mayor Moody?
You mentioned the perception of selling that parcel to Suffolk. Actually, going back probably over 15 years ago now, we sold the golf course that was in Suffolk. We owned it, part of the Obici property, right off Sleepy Hole Road, and due to the fact that we were maintaining it, which, as we know, maintaining a golf course is a pretty expensive ordeal, and the city got a pretty good price for it, and actually sold it to a Suffolk developer. who still maintains it as a golf course, sleepy old golf course. So and of course the golf course, a lot more acreage involved.
Right.
And I don't perceive that being a big negative. I think us having to maintain that acreage, which has no impact on our water shed for our lakes, because there's another piece of property, I think, between that and the lake as well.
That is true.
So I don't see that as a factor that should prevent us from selling it.
Councilwoman Thomas, ma'am, you have the floor. Then Councilman Dodson.
Thank you. Just to be, do we own any other kind of one-off properties in this area that we know, that you know of?
Not in this area that I know of. I asked that question also, but I don't have any records of any just one-off piece of property that we own this way.
Okay, so this just was a single parcel somehow purchased.
I'm sure it was purchased with something
For a
in mind. I just
purpose in
can't.
mind,
Yeah,
right,
I just
right.
have no access to what
Okay.
that purpose was.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dodson.
So I used to live just literally a couple of lots down from this from this parcel. It's quite rural, it's dirt, it's, if you look at it, it's not an incredibly useful piece of property. When that fire station fires up, it's not a place you want to live, right there beside it. I think the only point that we have is this single point where that V comes in. I think that's our property too,
Yes.
around there.
If you
And it's
go
not
back
wide enough.
to like the third slide.
It's not wide enough to access or to do anything with.
One more.
Right, yeah, remember that one, right? That little V that comes in is our property also.
Be a property overview.
Huh?
That should be a picture there. What happened to it?
I know.
Oh, it disappeared.
But anyway, in your packet, on page 3.
3.
Right. There's a outline of the property parcels. There's a red dot in one of those.
Yeah.
That red dot is the property that we're talking about.
Right there.
Yes, that one.
So yes, this property is going to naturally go up with the value of other properties, but not very fast. So I think if we can get some money for this property, it has absolutely no use for us. Let's get rid of it quickly and get all the benefit we can get out of it, the best price we can. I'm sorry, I meant to add in, it's a relatively low-income neighborhood, and that's why the property value, unless they decide to do a major rehab, which I doubt is going to happen, the value of this property is not going to go up because of the fire station and the low-income neighborhood that it is. So strongly recommend selling it.
Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. City Manager, I assume if we needed something from Suffolk right now, you'd already teed that up to us.
Yes.
Heat it up.
I would have, we kind of tried to think through, is there, opportunity immediately? But there's no immediate opportunity. But then you have this as banked opportunity that we may be able to use at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor, did you want the floor again?
It would be good to know what other parcels of land in Suffolk or any surrounding cities that we own. I do know that we own the Suffolk Golf Course,
Yes.
which we lease out, and that's valuable to us because it is right on the lake.
Right.
I don't know how far that is from this property. I think it's relatively pretty good ways, though, I believe. But it'd be good to know what other parcels and other cities that we
Get you
have.
that list. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yes, since I had a conversation with Mayor Duman today, and he didn't share with me that he was going to try to annex Portsmouth so that we could Suffolk.
The whole city?
Right. He's asked for that before.
Okay.
And
Maybe this
so-
is the way to start.
Right. So yeah, with that in mind, I don't think we'll be needing the 2.95 acres. So I concur with my colleagues. I just think that I agree with your point. It's a goodwill gesture. Suffolk has always been fair, I think, with us in our dealings.
Good.
So I think it makes sense for us to get the money and put it to good use in the city of Portsmouth.
Okay. So it appears that there is a willingness from this council to continue the negotiation and move forward with this. Am I reading the room right?
I think so, sir.
See if
We'll
you
do
can
that.
get, see if you can get 100 for it.
We'll do that. We'll definitely negotiate this process. And once we get to the point where we think we're ready to do something with it, we'll work through our legal department to make sure that we get all the papers lined up, bring it back to this council for approval. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you. No other presentations, but we do have a couple more things to talk about. I have Mr. Donahue here with me to answer any hard questions that I can't answer, but the EDA has put out a solicitation for a consultant to help design what the Crawford Bay area should actually turn out to be. Once that consultant has been selected, they're wanting to stand up a team, a committee that will work with that consultant to actually formulate the plan for that. They've asked for 2 members of the EDA, 2 members of the City Council, myself, and Mr. Donahue to participate on that committee. I'm standing before you today to ask, 1, if this body is willing to participate, and 2, if you are, can we designate 2 members that will participate on that committee? Any questions you may have about that, we'll try to answer. I have, again, Mr. Donahue with me, so that if we need to get into anything in depth with that, we can kind of talk about that also.
Vice Mayor Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Well, are you asking for us to select 2 members?
I'm asking you to consider that. You don't have to select the 2 members today, but in about 30 days, we'll need 2 members if this board is willing to do that. If you're not willing to do it, this ends the conversation today. But if you're willing to do it, then I need you to deliberate at some point and give me 2 names.
Well, I don't think we need to drag it out. I would say the mayor and Councilman Hugo, from my perspective. So, if there's concurrence.
Well, you said for the EDA board, for this consulting board?
For this project.
Committee, yes.
Yeah, committee.
Are you the 2, as a mayor, I can't remember who's on that EDA committee, who is?
So the liaisons are Vice Mayor Moody, if you're referencing the
Okay, yes.
liaisons, are Vice Mayor Moody and Vice Councilman Tillage.
Okay.
Those are the 2 individuals.
So as the liaisons, you both don't want to be, since you're kind of already on the EDA?
Well, I can only speak for myself.
You don't want the
and
extra commitment?
quite-
That's fair. That's a
Quite
fair
frankly,
point.
I wouldn't have the time that I think that's going to be needed to set on that committee, quite frankly, so,
Okay, and that was going to be my question, what's the time commitment?
yeah.
Hard to predict at this
Yeah.
point, but I would anticipate that there's going to be a time requirement because this is a project that has been on the minds and the books for Portsmouth for quite some time, and we're trying to put some legs on it and make it actually happen now. So we're going to have, whoever is on the board or is on that committee, we need committed people that's going to be able, but I can't tell you today what that time commitment is going to be. Brian, are you able to even speak to what a time commitment is going to be?
First, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Can you come over here?
I would, to your question, we don't have a schedule right now, but I would expect that it would be at least once a month, quite possibly more frequent than that, as we begin working with the consultant once they're on board to begin developing the solicitation criteria, the evaluation criteria for development partners. And then once that has been put out and marketed and advertised, also reviewing the proposals that are received to provide a recommendation to the City Council and EDA on a recommendation for selection of a development partner. So it's going to ramp up. It will be infrequent to begin with, but then will quickly become a more time-consuming process.
Okay.
And
Councilwoman Bryant, then Councilman Hugo.
I respect Vice Mayor Moody's proposal for the mayor and Mr. Hugel to be our representatives and recognize the seniority of both of them on this council. I would like to say that I would be willing to be an alternate, given the mayor's busy schedule. Mr. Hugel, your commitments, if there was a need for, or a possibility where we might need to switch out, I would be happy to volunteer for that.
Councilman Hugo.
And it's the anticipation this is a daytime commitment, not an evening commitment. It's important because
if you can.
not everybody can spare the daytime and time.
We will make efforts to work around your availability and schedule, yes. We will be working, again, with a consultant, so, they're likely going to need to be available as well, but we will work with the committee to make it a convenient time.
Councilwoman Thomas.
I think it would be worthwhile to assign 2 representatives from council to be a part of I think that was your question, to be a part of it. I was going to also volunteer, but again, if the consensus is the mayor and Councilman Hugel, I'm fine with that. I would ask how would the information be presented back to the rest of the body, because again, 2 voices is a good start for input, but it would be, to me, helpful to have all of our input as elected officials on this council. Eventually, some type of way. I know you have to start somewhere, not too much input, but how does that information come back to council for all of our input and voices across all of us?
You take that. Okay. You have 2 members that are liaisons to the EDA now. That board will work really closely with the EDA. Those members that are liaisons would be the voices that bring those things back to you and share with you.
Okay. All right.
And also, I would state that as the chief visionary officer of the city of Portsmouth, I was given that title. That's not a title the mayor created. I was given the title when I went through my coursework up at Harvard, so smart people gave me the title. So let's be clear. I think it's important, to your point, Councilwoman Thomas, this is an all-in, everyone opportunity. So the communication will be critical, but it will happen, because we can't get to the desired role or what we desire without council all buying in and also the community buying in.
Absolutely.
So it will be, this won't be a secretive process by any means. It'll be a very transparent and open process. So I think that will take care of it itself.
Sure.
And Mayor, if I may say, there is a precedent where we've done exactly that in the past on major projects. They have 2 members of council act as liaison, report back to council, and as we all know, council will have the final decision at the end of the day.
Right.
So there you go.
Well, this is a way to get the council input as the project moves along, instead of presenting something to you at the end and come up with 1,000 questions about it. You know what I mean? Right. Hopefully we can get those 1,000 questions answered along the way, so what we present to you at the end will be something that you can get on board with and we can move forward with.
Councilman Dodson.
So I feel like we heard from Mr. Hugel's position that he's interested, but there are other members interested. What is the mayor's interest in being on this position?
I'm interested.
Okay, that answers the question then.
Visionary. What'd you call it? Chief
Visionary officer.
Okay, he said he's a chief
Then I think
visionary.
then I think we have a nomination list.
So the visionary got to be on the committee.
So if my hearing serves me correctly, we have the mayor and Councilman Hugel as the
Yes.
members of the board.
Oh, well, how many alternates are we having then? Can we have 2 alternates? Because I would like to be an alternate as well.
You have as many alternates as you want. We only need 2.
Okay. I would like to be an alternate as well, if that's the pleasure of the council.
Absolutely.
Thank
We can
you.
have
All right.
alternates.
I think all of us would like to be the alternates.
Because if for some reason.
Everybody on this.
You guys go on vacation.
We got it. The ladies got it from here.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. We can give this to Mr. Donahue and his team, and we'll move forward with that. You'll get a notification of the scheduled times and dates of the meetings and locations, but nothing's happening immediately. Still got to get through selecting the consultant. Once the consultant is on board, then your meetings will start to ramp up after that. Finally, we have, again, some movement from last night till today. So I'm going to ask Mr. Burke if you'd come forward and kind of detail each one of the things that we're going to ask you to vote on tonight, just to make sure that everybody knows where we're standing, what's being presented to you as a package to be voted on. All right?
And Mr. Carter, before you go there, I did want to let all my colleagues know, regionally, as I am chair of the Hampton Roads Planning District, we had a need to fill a vacancy on the Regional Housing Board that deals with regional housing issues. We're working on a regional housing assessment strategy now at the Planning District. I talked to Mr. Tillage about taking that role, and I think because of his involvement in the housing efforts and his history and working legislatively, I thought he'd be a good fit for that board. So I just wanted to make everyone aware I will be making the recommendation to Mr. Crum that Mr. Tillage fill that role.
What board is this?
It's the Housing Assessment Board. It's an advisory group. Miss Terry was on it prior, but they wanted a representative from our council, and we had that discussion in the meeting. I apologize for not informing you about that.
HRPDC?
Yes,
I just want to add it to your list.
right. But I was gonna ask Bob and them to call you tomorrow so that we could finalize all of that. Ma'am, you're welcome.
Okay.
Mr. Burke, you have the floor.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Moody, members of City Council. As City Council approaches the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget, there have been some changes to the items up for adoption this evening. For the purpose of clarity, we wanted to review all the items, kind of go one by one, every single item, and make sure everyone was on the same page as to what was being adopted and what they're voting for or against. Items up for consideration at the Portsmouth City Council meeting on this evening, May 13th, 2025, to formally adopt the fiscal year 2026 operating budget and CIP are as follows. First, an ordinance to set rates and fees for the general fund, not including the EMS ambulance rates. This one does impact the real property tax rate. At the last night's council meeting, consensus was reached to set the real property tax rate at $1.24 and eliminate the tax credit of 6 cents up for adoption as item H. The ordinance up for consideration follows last night's consensus. Staff will pause for any further discussion.
Any discussion on that item? Councilman Tillage.
Yeah, so we had a conversation earlier today in regards to that tax rate, and understanding was to leave the budget alone. The citizens would still be in relief of what $1.24 would be effectively, but leaving it as it is for this.
Okay. So that would be we would need a consensus to maintain the tax rate at $1.30 for this ordinance and maintain the item H.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Okay, so we'll call, do we need a consensus for that item right now that you called for?
Not if there's not one to
Councilman
change, I guess.
If there's no desire
Understand,
to
the
change it.
consensus last night was to make the tax rate, not the effective tax rate, but the tax rate, $1.24.
Right.
If that is not what we're going to do, we need a new consensus that says we're going to make it $1.30 with a 6-cent tax credit.
Okay.
Okay, so which one are we
So
doing?
do we need a consensus to keep it as is? To keep it as is as of FY '25?
Yes.
So we want to
We need
keep
to
that.
undo what we did.
But the
You need
ordinance,
to undo what you did last night.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so the ordinance that you have is for the $1.36.
Right.
So if you're looking to change that as has been proposed, then you all need to do
All right,
something.
so I'm confused. So what we're voting on, according to what you have,
Yeah.
is the current FY '25.
That's not it.
It changed?
Yes.
Oh, it's not an updated here. though.
When did it change?
Hold on. Let's get everybody back in on.
Yeah.
Where we are right now. Okay, Trey and Jeff, you help me with this. All right. The tax rate is 124, okay, because of the consensus last night. If we're going to do 124, no action is necessary. If we're going to change it back to 130 with a 6-cent credit, a consensus is required to undo what we did last night. Okay. Is that correct, Jeff? Yes. All right. That's where we stand. So, we'll go either way. I just need to know which way we're going.
Councilman Hugo.
So in all the email chatter today, one of my emails was, let's leave the budget the way we walked away from the table last night. So what that meant was we walked away from the table last night in unanimous consent to move the tax rate to $1.24 and not do $1.30 and a 6-cent credit. So my recommendation again is that we leave the budget alone that we walked away from the table last night and leave the tax rate at the $1.24 tax rate that you all inserted overnight.
Okay.
Okay.
So we at $1.24, what we left the room last night. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yep, I agree with that.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Thank you for the clarity. I do just want to make sure, because I was trying to follow along, for 25-126H, in the package that I'm looking at, it says something different from what I'm hearing. So does this need to be updated, or is this, okay,
Yes.
I see y'all shaking your head, yes, okay.
We're all needing clarification,
Okay.
which way
Yes.
you're gonna go, so we can make sure
In
you
the
have the right ordinance in
Document
front
in
of
here.
you.
Okay, thank you.
What's in your document, just to make sure?
It's a 6 cents credit, basically, yes.
Right, that was, right.
So we're changing that to $1.24 that we left the room last night.
No
in
credit.
agreement.
Right,
No
so
credit.
we would need, because my understanding when I talked to Jeff earlier today, is that it has to stay on at least the agenda when you walk in the room. So if we're, because of when the
It
agenda
was
went.
advertised.
Yeah, so we will need a motion at some, or whenever the agenda comes up,
Yeah.
Right.
to remove it from the agenda.
Okay.
So you brought it up last night. Seems like you probably ought to bring it up tonight too.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah.
In the meantime, not to get in your conversation, but if it is a consensus of council to change it to lowering the tax rate, it would be helpful for management and staff to know that, so that we can have the appropriate ordinance in front of you. So when Mr. Moody or whoever makes that motion, that they're reading from the right information instead of what we have, which is not reflective of the lowering of the tax rate.
Well, I think we just communicated that.
Can we see a raise of our hands?
Okay.
Just so we're clear.
Okay.
So I think we have our,
I have one.
Councilwoman Thomas, ma'am, you have the floor.
I do have one discussion point, not regarding, it's regarding this, but kind of pinned for later.
Okay.
Something that we've all been hearing and discussing is just what might the future hold that could impact us as a city regarding Lake Mead and that federal funds. Do we have I just wanted to ask you two together is there a thought process of being proactive as we're closing out our decision on this budget, but thinking into the future and how the decisions we make today might impact that? I just wanted to throw that conversation out there. I thought about it yesterday and kept it in, but I want to put that out there.
To be blunt with you, there's a tax increase in your future.
Okay. I wanted to put that out there.
Just so you know. Okay.
All right. Yes.
Councilwoman Bryant, ma'am, you have the floor.
I want to take a minute to just summarize the pros and cons here. Pros being, we create a tax rate that is what we are taxing. It's clear, it takes political courage, as Vice Mayor Moody said last night, if we're going to change it down the line, but it makes us competitive as a city in terms of attracting people. It's clear, it's easy to explain. The other side of that is that we have a very unpredictable future financially with the current federal administration. It looks, all indicators are pointing to the fact that we probably will lose funding at some point in any given way.
Yes.
And it's more difficult to raise taxes than to lower them. So the benefit of doing the tax credit is to avoid that down the road. And that's the conversation we had last night. And I just want to summarize both of those in case anybody wasn't watching last night. Now we've got those arguments back on the table.
Vice Mayor Moody and then Councilman Tillers.
I think we deal with the present. There's a lot going around on both sides of that issue, that the sky's fallen. Current administration, we all are going to end up in the poorhouse, which seems like to me those winds are changing. I think the naysayers, I think at the end of the day, are going to not be accurate. And to once again disguise what our rate is by trying to shield what councils have to do in making tough decisions when the facts are presented. The facts haven't come to fruition on that yet. And we get paid to make decisions. I've been part of councils that have had to raise taxes, and if some of y'all are here long enough, you'll be in that position as well. And as long as you tell the public why you're having to raise taxes and what the money is going for, you'll probably be all right as well. But to hedge your bets on some tax credit because Mr. and Ms. Public, we don't want to, we're uncertain about our ability as a city to deal with the facts, especially when we left this room last night, all positive. Now we're getting ready to be wishy-washy to go back the other way. I think that sends a very muddled message myself. So,
Councilman Tillage.
Thank you. So I will say that I'm very confident in any decision that I make, whether it's to lower or to increase it, and I think that we can support either way. I don't fear that. I do have some uncertainty solely because we've lost over $30 million in funding since Trump has been president. He still has 3.5 years to go. And if we've lost $30 million thus far, we need to ensure the citizens as well that we have the best interest to ensure that we're able to provide the funding that's going to be needed to replace the Lake Mead money, that we're going to have funding that's going to be needed to replace the line item that the governor vetoed as far as one of our water sewer facilities. And so that's where I think the cautiousness comes in. But, at the end of the day, to your point, we left here yesterday unanimous, not to be wishy-washy. But I think it's very imperative that this council and citizens know that while Portsmouth is good today, we cannot always control our external influences.
Right.
And we have seen that since January 20th. And then we also had another article come out yesterday that Portsmouth Public Schools as well as Chesapeake Public Schools were denied millions of dollars from the federal government recently. And so I think it's just important that we take heed of that because somebody's got to replace those dollars, and it's going to fall back on the localities. And so we have to be very responsible in our tax rates, and we don't want to give false hope to the community, but at the same time, we do want to show confidence in our city as well. But that's my comments.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dodson.
I would love to have, before we finalize this, I'd love to see some discussion on the school budget talks that you had, because we might have some leeway with the number that we set here to try and make up for the schools if y'all didn't get an alternative. I'm not fully familiar with how the talks went today.
I talked to Dr. Bracey about this. He says he couldn't make any moves without convening his board. Didn't have time to convene his board before our meeting today, so it remains as it was. They will determine what's the best way for them to come up with $1.9 million.
Okay. So then we're set. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments, questions on that item? Okay, we move forward.
Tax rate's 124.
Tax rates 124, sir.
Boldly go.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, me too.
Just saying.
A lot of pages falling in, aren't they? All right. Item B, an ordinance to set utility rates for water and sewer. Staff is not aware of any request to amend or review this ordinance. Ordinance to set utility rates for stormwater management. Again, staff is not aware of any requests to amend or review this ordinance. And item D, an ordinance to set ambulance fees for services provided by Portsmouth Emergency Medical Services. Again, staff is not aware of any discussion or request to amend or review this ordinance. And I am pausing and looking around to make sure before I move on to the next one. Just make sure. All right, item E, an ordinance to approve the CDBG annual action plan. No request to review or amend this that I'm aware of. Item F, an ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2026 pay and classification plan. Not aware of any request to review or amend. Ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2026 capital improvement plan. Also not aware of any requests. Ordinance to approve a 6-cent tax credit for real property taxpayers. Based on the conversations earlier, we will be needing, again, a motion when the agenda is provided or up for consideration to remove item H from the agenda.
Yeah.
Item I, an ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2020-26 operating budget for Portsmouth Public Schools. At the April 8th public work session, the city manager was directed to meet with the Portsmouth Public School superintendent to discuss ways to increase the local contribution to schools. Those meetings resulted in an increase to the local contribution of $1.5 million. At last night's council meeting, staff was instructed to discuss with Portsmouth Public School Superintendent possible ways to increase the level of funding by roughly $1.9 million. Schools has informed the city manager that they will continue forward without changing the budget, as the manager just went over. With both sets of those discussions completed, the city's contribution to Portsmouth Public Schools was increased by $1.5 million, totaling $82,878,325. That's reflected in the ordinance up for adoption this evening. Staff is not aware of any requests to review or amend this ordinance at this time. All right. Item J, ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 2020-25 operating budget. Up for adoption this evening is an ordinance that enhances its Portsmouth Public Schools contribution by $1.5 million as stated earlier, the retiree supplement by $150,000, and provides funding for Complete the Puzzle, the Police Athletic League, and the Man Foundation. Is there any additional discussion on this ordinance?
Vice Mayor Moody.
The Man Foundation. We have a process, and I'm concerned about this because for a number of years, council has followed a process for funding for city organizations. And that process is a grants process where the organization applies for it. That's part of our vetting process. And I don't think this particular funding request followed that. And since that one has come to light, there's been another request that some of us got via text message for another funding request. So I think in granting one that hasn't gone through the vetting process, I think it opens a Pandora's box and sets a bad precedent. We have a process. I think anybody applying for public money should follow that process. So I would ask for a consensus that we defer this to the next budget process so this organization can be properly vetted and they can do what other organizations have done successfully, and that's follow the grant process. So, Mayor, I ask for a consensus on deferring this to the next budget cycle.
Okay. Are there any other comments or discussion? Councilman Hugo.
So I talked with Councilwoman Thomas today. I asked the question yesterday, and we talked today. So the Man Foundation is applying to Portsmouth United for grant funding. So there's a possibility for them to get an alternate source of funding from the city instead of this funding. So there's another pathway potentially.
Good.
Councilwoman
Thank you.
Thomas.
I don't want to conflict two issues here. So yes, we did talk, but what an organization is doing for another funding source is outside of the realm of this conversation. So I just want to separate that so I can address the first comment, Vice Mayor Moody. I would be interested to know what's the grant process, because there were other organizations that didn't go through a grant process. To me, being a risk manager, mapping out organizations and processes, I'm very aware that what is applied to one area to be equally provided to others. And I'm not aware of any document, application submission from PALS, from completing the puzzle, from multiple other organizations that were already included in the initial budget proposal. This is my first time going through a budget cycle, so I might not be aware. I did consult with the city manager, as we all have in our one-on-one budget discussions, to get this item added, and it was, I provided a fact sheet including data for the programming that this foundation has been doing within the city. And I'm completely fine with if there's a budget, if there's a grant process that the city has established that will be equally applied across all civic organizations. Where I think we would get in trouble is singling out an organization and not applying policy across all organizations. So I want to just caution us as members to be equal in how we apply our policies or directives, so that we're not seeing as pointing out certain organizations and giving a pass to other organizations. So I just want to put that out there, and if I can get some clarity on if there's a process, that would be great, and what organizations have gone through said process. Thank you.
Councilman Tillage, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I will say that the civic organization fund that this is coming out of is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a council basically discretionary. And when you look at the nonprofits that are in that category, it's been common practice of this council that those items are submitted via council, via a majority of council. And in order for it to even make it on that list, it had to have had a majority of council consensus, just like every other item that did get on that list. And I think that when we're looking at the amounts that are on that list, I don't think this and this is the truth, this is the smallest amount that's on that list, $10,000. And they range from $10,000 up to $350,000. I think if we're going to do that, I think we should look at maybe some of the higher cost items. But I don't think we should defer our situation over the $10,000 mark. And I think to Councilwoman Thomas's point, I think she did it the way that it's been commonly practiced, which has been a consensus of council members. And I think that it might be more advantageous of council to set deadlines on when we're going to stop allowing add-ons to a budget. And since I've been on council, we have not had that deadline to stop, to allow the city manager that time. And I think when he sent us an email today, he asked for us to, for the next budget, for us to establish that. And I think Councilwoman Thomas was in her right to have that added.
Vice Mayor Moody.
Mr. Burke, I know in the past there's been a deadline for submitting applications from civic organizations. Can you explain that process and the deadlines involved and how those applications are looked at and how the decision process is determined?
Yes, sir. There is a community and regional organization grant process. It usually opens between November and December and closes between January and February, sometime in there, those first 4 to 6 weeks of the year. We solicit applications from organizations, any organization that could provide a service to the citizens or to the city is considered. And it's, we kind of judge them on the merit. We also judge them on, is this a required service? So for instance, we have Friends of the Portsmouth Juvenile Court. If they were to leave, the judges at the juvenile court would come and they'd yell at me first, and then, they start yelling all over the place, and I wouldn't blame them. There are also some, there's some like Meals on Wheels, where they're a match for a federal program. We also have, a few that serve, like a food bank, and there's also some that provide homeless services to the city. We have in the past had council members propose grants. Usually when these kinds of things come up, we do fold them into that CRO process. After the fact, we work with them to arrive at a program that fits the CRO application process, kind of irrespective of the deadline for the formal CRO process. And then, we get the contract signed and the agreement signed to make sure that they are providing the services as such, I guess. So, there's kind of been two kind of tracks for this, but we get everybody at some point into that CRO process.
Well, to my councilwoman's Thomas's point, so we haven't strictly followed the process. In other words, we've accepted applications after the deadlines and give the organization some leeway in applying. Is that a correct statement?
When you say we, it's you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Just understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not pointing a finger at you.
Okay.
But so that process hasn't been stringent.
Yes. There's several ways inside.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, to that point, I don't think we can have two standards here. To Councilwoman Thomas's point. I'll revert. Shame on us. I got shame on, and I'm pointing my finger at me too. That I think we need to review that process.
We can definitely do that.
So we are treating everyone equally in determining who gets the taxpayers' money or not.
Absolutely.
And whether it's a good cause. And to Ms. Thomas's credit, she gave us some information. It looks like the MAN organization does a lot of good work. I'm not familiar with them, but apparently a lot of people are.
Yes.
So I don't see how we can single them out not to be included if they are in the process or supplying the information that's needed to grant the money.
Well, we have not asked them yet. And understand this, when this budget gets passed, we don't start writing checks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're still
Right.
going to go through a vetting process with all these organizations before we actually disperse any money.
But
And if something doesn't come up right, then we're going to come back to you guys and say, hey, man, this just don't work for us.
But let's tighten that up and do a better job of advertising it as
Yes.
well, on how organizations apply, what the deadlines are. I think we need to start talking about that early in the process, in the budget process.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
Lesson learned.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with Vice Mayor Moody. I think we need to tighten up the process. I think it's very loose. And I would also like to see, when we do our one-on-one meetings, them be a little bit earlier, just to allow for input. Because I know you put your budget together, but still to kind of allow some input for us to at least express those issues prior to that, so that once your budget comes out, there really is no reason for council to be like, oh, I want this and that, because we kind of have buy-in throughout the entire process. I think that would help to alleviate some of that, but then also having that deadline about telling council, this is a drop deadline for when you can add anything to the budget, to allow you and your team some weeks, the final weeks, to do what needs to be done, so that you're not having to print these out and have Ms. Deborah run to her office at the last minute to do that. I think it's it'd be very advantageous of us to do that.
Can I address that?
Yes, go ahead, sir. And then Councilwoman Thomas.
We'll look at the schedule and try to make some adjustments, but remember, we're going to meet with about 25 different separate agencies before we start meeting with you guys to try to get all that stuff put together. So it may be a little bit difficult to get you moved up earlier, but we'll do our best to give you an early shot.
Okay, and I just wanted to add on to the point you were making, Vice Mayor Moody. I'm all about reducing ambiguity. And so I don't like any type of where we do one thing one way and not another way. Because for me, coming from operational risk standards, you open up yourself to a lot of risk, and I don't like that. So I'm all on board for completely applying some type of process to how we fund these civic organizations. I'm also on board. I mentioned at one of our prior meetings that we require these organizations that we fund to provide us with an impact statement even after we give them the dollars, so that we understand if there's another request or whatever, we can answer to the citizens exactly how that money was spent in metrics and numbers and data for how it impacted the group or target group is supposed to impact. And that's one of the reasons that I was comfortable asking even for a small amount for the Mann Foundation, because they do report their data. They have already implemented in the city, impacting our inmates. For people that publicly don't know, they are one of the few reactive organizations when we talk about crime and public safety. A lot of our programming that we have are preventative programs to address prevention into crime, but after crime, there's another population that you try to reach and touch, and those families that are impacted by that. So they go directly into our jails. They are currently working in our jails with men. They go through a curriculum, help them with skill building, resume writing, training, so that once they come out, they have a less likelihood of returning, and that they're better able to be fathers supporting their families and the children or families they left behind. So they support the families that are left behind as well. So that's one of the reasons I felt like there was a gap and a need, and even a small amount. And now knowing about Portsmouth United, they're open to that as well. But that's why I definitely am on board for putting some processes in place. And to the city manager's point, I feel like this is lessons learned going through the budget cycle. The first time for three of us that I think this is great conversation to take into our fall retreat of how we want to, what do we learn from this budget cycle to maybe start the meetings earlier or whatever we've learned. I think that's important, and I appreciate the dialogue, so thank you.
Councilman Hugo, then Vice Mayor.
And thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Manager, you mentioned that you don't write the checks right away, that there's additional vetting. I sent a note earlier to my colleagues suggesting that as part of that vetting process, that at least for the folks that we're going to write more than $10,000 of checks, that we include as part of the vetting that we invite them to a work session to make sure that all of us know what they're doing, where the money's going,
Thank you.
how the money's going to impact the community, those, give them a chance to answer those kind of questions. And so I don't know if we have to agree consensus-wise, but I'd like to see us include that as part of that vetting process before you start writing checks.
Prior to that, we had already talked about that.
Yeah.
And part of our process will be, anybody that we provide funds to, they're going to have to make some kind of presentation to this
Okay.
council.
Vice Mayor, then Council.
Thank you, Councilman Hugel. Actually, in the past, it's been a few years now, doing the civic organizations' request for funds, that especially new organizations would be required to come to council. I think our Ms. White recalls that. And I think that's a good process that we need to get back to.
Yes.
Exactly.
Did you want the floor, Councilman Brown? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And this definitely speaks to one of your goals, Mr. Carter, which is to establish better processes. And as Councilwoman Thomas said, 3 of us are new, but this was also your first time doing the budget. So we have learned a lot from this process,
Yes, thank
certainly.
you.
And I appreciate all of you in helping me walk through this process. We've been very collaborative in that.
Continuity.
I have talked extensively with Councilwoman Thomas. We've had lots of back and forth. And certainly the Mann Foundation is a valuable foundation, and I support what their goals are, absolutely, as I know all of you would also. I do want to raise the point, and possibly for the attorney, to make it clear that the foundation is run by one of our school board members. And is that a potential conflict? I think it's in all of our interests to be transparent about that. And is that just a gray area, or is there a line there?
Mr. Challenger, can I answer that first? Or just step in? I know you asked Mr. Challenger, but I would like to step in for a second there.
Okay, you have the floor.
And because we had talked, I'm all about checks and balances and up and being and having integrity. My name and reputation mean everything to me. My family's name, the Edmonds family, I would never do anything to jeopardize that. But so I did check with City Attorney, not Challenger Boulevard, DeGraham earlier, and I also, on the school board side, asked them to check on their piece as well. And yes, they looked into it and provided guidance. They provided what is called a letter of, let me see, hold on. It's called a conflict of interest opinion from their school board attorney, clearing the school board member from any possible conflict. There is no conflict. Also provided a state code here to reference. It is, and I'll send this to you, Mr. You're the lawyer here, but they provided this in the reference letter as well from the school board attorney. Basically, because that school board member is not, this project is not related to a school board contract, nothing related in the schools, it's purely city programming. Essentially, it's fine. There's no conflict. This is not going towards salary. It's all going towards programming. And I want to be very clear. Whatever is applied to one organization needs to be applied and questioned across all organizations. So I've checked out on my end as a city council member, on her end with the school board attorney from their perception. But I think if we're going to do that for one organization, we probably need to do that for all organizations.
May I follow up, Mayor?
You have the floor, ma'am.
I wonder if at this point, maybe anyone connected to any of the organizations that we are supporting, if we need to be transparent about our connections to those organizations if that's something that is worth presenting in conversation now.
Vice Mayor Moody, you have the floor, sir.
Tonight, when we are discussing the retirees funding, I'll be reading a similar statement because I'm under that retirement system, and I've read such a statement in the past. So, to your point,
Okay.
I'll be reading that, and the Attorney Graham Williams's opinion, as her predecessors are, that since there's more than 3 people involved in that retirement plan, my position and vote is really minuscule, so it wouldn't really amount to much.
And I think, if I could just add in closing on this item, there are a couple of things that come to mind. I've listened to the dialogue. First of all, bringing items when it's almost a budget adoption, we can't operate like that as a council. It's too confusing. It causes a lot of challenges for our staff. And I understand the manager is ultimately responsible for submitting the budget, but we need to be responsible as council members in how we submit information. I get it that folks are new on the council. At the same time, there's opportunity to ask questions along the way. We've been here since January, and so if you had a question, if you thought about a question, you had ample time to do it. The other thing is, we have to work very collaboratively. We have to work very collaboratively because there are other things that nonprofit organizations can apply for in the city. And in addition to that, we have to be careful that we are not putting ourselves in any types of situations where it doesn't look good optically. And I get the understanding of all of that, but we decided when we had a meeting, when we had our retreat, that we were going to collaborate, communicate, and cooperate. The reality is no one is saying folks don't have a right to apply for resources from the city government. But what we do have a responsibility to do is make sure that we do it in the appropriate time frame so that it doesn't bring additional hardship to our staff. And that is a responsibility of council. That is not a responsibility of staff. In my time here, whenever we've tried to add a budget item, I can remember the time, and Mr. Tillage can attest to this. Remember when you asked to add the budget item on the sheriff's supplement? Remember that? And it was at the 11th hour, and certainly it was more than $10,000. The reality was it got done, but it was the timing which caused us a little bit of a challenge from a staff perspective, but we still got the work done. All I'm saying is, no one's here to say that we're for or against, but it is a process. I respect all of the comments, how we improve the process, but we've got to be responsible as a council to know the rules and know when to apply the rules. And I am under the same constraints as everybody else. Just wanted to put that out there. Whatever the consensus will be on this item, it will be, and we'll move it forward.
I hear you, Mayor. Thank you for those comments. I just want to make sure, again, to reiterate to the public, this was not the only organization added after the initial proposed budget. I just want to make sure that's clear and that going forward, we are going to apply a process that we agreed to so that it's all equally applied with the timeline. I just want to go back to making sure that is what we're coming out of this in the end with. And I didn't know if Mr. Challenger had anything to say. I thought he did, but okay.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Mr. Challenger?
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilman Hugel, sir, you have the
Thanks, Mr.
floor.
Mayor. I'd like to respond to Councilwoman Bryant's comment. So just to be clear, I'm unpaid Starbase board member. Starbase is one of those civ orgs that's covered in the budget. And I got an opinion from the city attorney a year plus ago when the question was raised about my participation on the board and the council approving a budget that included funding for the Star-Based Growth Plan. So
Councilman Tillett, do you want the floor, sir?
Yeah, so my question was just in regards to, with all this conversation, what the consensus was about. 'Cause I think,
Mr. Burke.
so he was just giving us information, right?
Right.
Right.
So we're not voting on anything?
No.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
No, we're,
Unless you want to change something, we're ready to move on.
I like the idea that we said that what we had last night is what we have. So,
okay. And if that's what we have, that's
And
fine.
council members, just to be clear, you have received the revised ordinance. The revised ordinance has been put online. It was put online earlier today. It was in your box, so you had it. And so when you go out there, it's not necessary to do anything special. I'll read the ordinance, and you will do as you would do on the rest of the ordinances. You don't have to make any special motions, because you will be adopting what's before you. Except for H, you're going to withdraw it.
Withdraw.
that's the
Right,
credit.
right. That's
Yes.
the credit, right? It's going to be $1.24, not $1.30 with a 6-cent credit.
Correct.
So you're going to just withdraw that particular item.
It's not $1.24.
Does a motion have to be a motion to withdraw, then the
On item
motion?
eight.
That's right,
Then-
$1.30 with a 6-cent
All
credit.
you have to do is withdraw.
That's what it was.
Just withdraw?
Right.
Okay,
The rate is covered in item A.
right.
I've been looking at a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Mercy.
That's why we're doing this.
Okay. Councilman Dotson.
Yeah, I wanted to close out this last item and say I'm so glad we're addressing a process on on funding these nonprofits, because I've talked to a number of organizations who are very confused about the process and have received multiple different advice on how to get into that process. So I'd love to put it up in flashing lights a little more than we have in the past, to say this is the process, because of the conflicting information. It's been very confusing for not just one organization, but
Oh, I wasn't confused, though. Yes, I was volunteering.
at least 5 organizations that I know of were confused.
Councilman Tillage.
Yeah, I just wanted to add this one last piece, and I'll leave the subject alone. But when the process is established, can we make sure there's criteria? Because what we don't need to do is get into this whole
Right.
Pandora's box
Yes.
of nonprofits through this process.
That's exactly
So I
right.
think it's very important that we put some, like for example, CBDG money, we understand through the federal government what that money's for. We understand the impacts that it has on the community. And there's other avenues for other types of nonprofits for what they do. So this is not like an alternative because you get denied from another grant process. So I just want to make sure that we include the specific criteria and that we really make it a tight-knit situation.
Second.
That's a good point.
And one of the things I'll say, so just so you all know, I get calls every day from nonprofit organizations, okay, that do a lot of different services in this city. And one in particular I got a call from that does a healthcare service in this community. It provides a very important service to our folks who are afflicted with HIV and other health concerns. And Mr. Carter can allude to this. You know, we get these calls and they all are referred to the city manager's office. And the reality is we do have a process. Mr. Carter does have a process and a criteria for vetting these organizations. Because if you remember, the last interim city manager we established a process of vetting and making sure that is I don't know if it was changed or altered, but I do know you have a process. Is that correct, sir?
Absolutely.
And there are checks and there are things that have to be met within that process. Is that fair, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's why when I say ask the questions, we have a staff here that has the information in a lot of ways. That hold on, just hear me out.
Oh, I wasn't saying anything.
And I'm just saying, we have a staff that's here to really kind of help us. And what I really try to stress, even when we had our meetings, you know, these are our resources. If there's a question, let's start there. Because He is our CEO. Everything flows from him. So if we have a question of a process or what happens, before we start getting excited about changing processes, let us understand what our processes are. And then when we understand what our processes are, I think that gives us the opportunity to make any changes, enhancements, improvements. But we have some sound processes because, as you all remember, during COVID, we had a lot of different issues and situations. And so that was important for this council to kind of install some processes. So that's all I want to just reiterate. Let's use the resources. It's okay if we don't know something, but they're here to help. Is that fair, Mr. Carter?
Absolutely.
And I think you want to help, right?
Will help.
Okay. Very good.
Mayor, can I just clarify?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
are right, and Mr. Carter is my go-to, the first person I go to, so I just want to put that out there. I'm on board with 100%. He's the first person I go to. In processes, I also want to say, you have to have processes, but if you have no governance to ensure that your process is being followed, that's something we also need. That's my 2 cents to it, so thank you.
It's all good, and thank you all for this work session. Are there any liaison reports at this time as it regards to the work session? Anybody have any liaison reports?
Mayor,
Councilwoman Bryant, ma'am, you have the floor.
thank you. I want to describe the Spark School initiative to you all that Councilman Hugel and I talked to the school board liaisons about at our last meeting with them, because it's interesting and it's coming up and you'll probably be hearing more about it. They have designated Douglas Park Elementary as their first Spark School, and this is an initiative to take the lowest performing elementary school in the city and give it all of the resources it possibly can to hopefully flip it onto a better track. So they have hired a new principal from Chesapeake who they are very pleased with. She comes very highly recommended by the staff that has worked under her in Chesapeake, and the expectation is that she'll potentially bring teaching staff, they will follow her to work with her, leaving Chesapeake and coming to Portsmouth. The teachers who are teaching at Douglas Park will be asked to reapply to the school if they would like to stay, or they will be reassigned to other elementary schools. So if there are staff there that are successful now, they may be hired back to stay, or they may be pulling in new staff, new teachers to start fresh. No one will lose a job. They will be placed in other elementary schools. All of the staff that are hired, all the teachers, the teachers who are hired will be receiving $10,000 bonuses over 3 years for a total of $30,000 over 3 years. That bonus money is paid out over the course of the year, so you're not signing on and then taking $10,000 and then leaving. The expectation in signing a teacher on is that they will stay for the 3 years. Obviously, circumstances arise, but the expectation in hiring is that they will stay for the 3 years and have that $30,000 bonus in totality. It's new, it's different, and I think it's a creative way to try and take this very low-performing school and give it some fresh ideas and creativity and teaching staff, and hopefully it will be successful. The superintendent did tell us that they will look at the results, gather data, if it is successful, potentially repeat that process. But I expect you all will be hearing something about it as the school year begins. And so that came out of the liaison meeting along with our budget talk. So it's to add to the conversation.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anything else? Councilman Hugel.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So just one other item of interest that came out of the school board liaison meeting. The school board chair shared that he was at a conference some time ago, and there were some folks from Henrico County who briefed collaboration between their school board and their local government leadership that had nothing to do with money, but instead had to do with working together to tackle problems in the schools. One of the issues that this student brought up was truancy, and so the
Working hard on that.
the collaboration between the schools identifying students who were habitually truant and difficulty getting the parents to get involved, to get their kids to school, by the school board working with the local government. The local government engaged the parents in some unique ways through Department of Social Services, and got the parents' attention in a different way than the schools would have been able to do. And as a result, that collaboration led to marked improvements in numbers of truant students. And so we asked Dr. Patillo to get additional information, bring it to the school board liaison meeting so that we can together look at where there might be opportunities for us to engage with the school board to work collaboratively on something other than money, to try to use the city government to help the school system solve some of their chronic issues. And so more to follow once we hear back from Dr. Patillo.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Dr. Dodson.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. I was at the school board retreat, and the amazing thing they've done to reduce truancy is one of the metrics that they are actually monitoring. I would love to see them expand those metrics, but what they're doing is it's down over 50% truancy that they're seeing. So amazing work they're doing.
Well, I think, they're working hard, and we should be supportive of that, and I think we are. Real quick, I just wanted to update everyone on the Mayor Just City Design Fellowship that I participated in at Harvard from January until April. Part of that program was, at the end, we were required, the city of Portsmouth was required to present our vision for the Innovation District, now the Link District. And we were participating with 8 other mayors throughout the country, and we did a very good job of telling our story. Dr. Rhonda Russell, who is the director of our planning and zoning department, accompanied me to Harvard, and everyone was really impressed with our project. And as a result of follow-up, we will be given resources. The folks that were there, the team that was there were professionals from the Graduate School of Design of Harvard, and they work all throughout the country. They have different firms, architectural and other firms, that work to help localities like us to build a more just community. So it's amazing work that we're going to undertake. We're going to get the resources. They're going to be working with Dr. Russell and I as we move forward in conceptualizing what this will look like. That information will be shared with the entire group once it happens, but I wanted to thank you all for your participation. That's where I got my title from as the
Visionary.
the chief visionary officer. I kind of like that, so I'm going to keep it for now. But Portsmouth is heading in a very positive direction. We're engaging. We're doing great things. I did want to mention our manager. I recommended him for an upcoming program that he will be going to Harvard in the month of June. And I think he'll be gone for about 20 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
So kudos to him for being selected in that program. We are participating in some national programs. We have yet to get the awards on those national programs that potentially could be brought to Portsmouth.
We're at the doorstep of one with a fellow that they will fund to live and work in Portsmouth for 2 years on projects that we have assigned. But we've done the interviews with that. Haven't gotten back to find out who's actually going to show up yet. So we'll see where we are with that.
But just to kind of reiterate what came out of that relationship, for example, our gun violence reduction white paper that we received when Nika Santos was here, that was one of those benefits of being a part of the program. And just if anyone asks you, the city paid no dollars for me to participate in that program. They didn't pay those dollars. They paid some travel dollars, but we get reimbursed on a lot of it. So the bottom line is, it was a very inexpensive endeavor for the city.
Thank you.
That's right. So that concludes our presentations. If that's all everyone has, this work session is adjourned. See everybody at